Hello everyone, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining me. I was disappointed that we weren't going to have our final session together, and so I decided to make a little video for you. And today's topic would have been collective worship, and I was concerned that perhaps if you missed this session, then you wouldn't have had that important training. So I'm going to begin by talking through some of the slides that I would have used on the training, and then I'll wave a few resources around that I highly recommend, and hopefully that just fills that gap of knowledge, or inspires you and encourages you and gives you more confidence. It's been a strange first year, and I hope you're doing okay. I hope that you've been managing to keep in touch with your pupils, and that the homeschooling has been working well, and that that you haven't been ill, and that you haven't got too stressed by all of this. So here is the little video that I've made of the slides that I would have used this morning. Let's begin by thinking about this question. What is worship? Praise, adoration, prayer, singing, silence. Worship happens in churches, in temples, in football stadiums, and in shopping centres. But what's the difference between the worship that takes place in a church and worship that takes place in a football stadium? And it's really worth taking a moment to consider the answer to that question, because it helps us to get our heads round exactly what worship is. And then worship that we have in school every day. What's that all about? Why? When? How? Who? Where? Well, collective worship at a very basic level takes place because it's the law. And every school should have an act of collective worship every day. And that act of collective worship should be wholly, mainly or broadly Christian. However, in our church schools, we can be wholly Christian. And we have worship in our schools because it's an expression of our Christian vision. Our Christian vision lived out. And it places Christ at the centre of daily life in our schools. It's a huge element of what makes us distinctive as church schools. Whenever we like. It can be at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the day. It can be in the hall, it can be in classrooms, it can be in key stages, it can be in the church, it could be outside on the field. How we structure the worship and who leads the worship, I'm sure is guided by your collective worship leader, your head teacher, and the governors. But what's great is to think about, what are we doing? What exactly are we doing? So the next questions: what do you think you are doing when you lead collective worship? And what is the purpose of your role in collective worship? When we lead collective worship, we are in the privileged position of taking people, the adults and the children that are worshipping with us, to the threshold, the place where they can then decide whether to actually worship or not, the place where they can encounter God if they wish to. A spiritual place, a quiet place, a place where we think, a place where we pray. We're leading collective worship to equip our children with knowledge and understanding of who Jesus Christ is, what Christian faith is all about, to enable them to decide what their own faith, beliefs, choices, attitudes, behaviour is going to be. We're not there to convert them. We're there to give them a very positive experience of worship and the Christian faith. Wouldn't it be great if they came out of the classrooms and walked down the corridor to the hall with that sense of expectation that collective worship is going to be a time that really matters, a time that makes a difference to them, a time where they can encounter God. And the purpose of your role is to guide, to lead, to be a companion, to be a role model, to be Christ's representative in your school, which is a big responsibility, but that's what you signed up for when you began work in a church school. And your role is to bring exuberance. What a great word that is at the moment, where we're all stuck at home, into what it means to have faith in your life. And how are we going to do that? Well, I once read in a book that collective worship should be the imagination station of school life. And I loved that image, an imagination station. Stations are busy, people are on journeys, people that know each other, people saying hello, people saying goodbye, people that have never met before, strangers, people that are working there. And sometimes you're in a station regularly, and sometimes it's just once in a while. And if you think about all that in your mind and then add imagination to it, that they are carriages full of stories and questions and dance and drama and puppets and pictures and music and all those things that we use to stimulate children's imagination as they journey through the curriculum. Let's use them to stimulate their imagination as they journey through collective worship, as they are on their own spiritual journey. Now, all collective worship needs ingredients and equipment. And just like when you're baking a cake, there is basic ingredients that are needed to make sure the cake is a cake, like flour and sugar and butter, and then there is times when we add extra special ingredients and produce a showstopper like they do on Bake Off. So you don't have to be all singing, all dancing, incredibly amazing every single day, but you do have to produce a really good, tasty cake, because then it keeps everybody's interest. And then when we do, at festival times, celebration times, special theme days or charity days, when we have some real showstoppers, they make an even greater impact on the children's memories. And there's also certain pieces of basic equipment that we use as well. Music, PowerPoints, a cross, a candle, a cloth in the colour of the church year at that time. And then those ingredients that come in all sorts of shapes and sizes turn into a beginning, a middle and an end. And at the beginning, we need to create a sense of welcome, use an opening sentence such as "The Lord be with you and also with you," and gather everyone together as a family, as a community. And then the middle, the content, once everyone's engaged and purposeful, then we have our message, the talk, the story, etc. And then a conclusion, a time of reflection, a time of prayer, a challenge, something to think about and remember what's been said in that time of worship. A beginning, a middle and an end. Your worship should be well planned and have a theme that's been organised by your worship coordinator. There should be a focal point in the hall, a table, a display, something that says, you know, now's the time for worship. Sometimes this room is the place where you eat your dinner, or you do PE, or you have lessons. Now this place is being used for worship. We begin with our opening sentence, and we must make sure that whatever topic and whatever theme that we're doing connects to the child's world. Make it relevant, make it real. Ask questions. Talk about things they understand and experiences they've had. Leading into biblical material which must underpin all our collective worship. And then we might use music and singing, always prayer, different visual aids to make impact on memory and creativity and to inspire. It's important to involve the pupils. They're not just there to answer questions, and they're not just there to hold up pieces of paper at the front. They're there to be part of it. They're there to lead prayers and to choose the content and to lead from the front and to do drama. And always have a time of silence, because that could be the only time of silence those children experience in that day. A positive experience of silence. We can share with them the joy of what it means to be still in the presence of God. So planning and content is really important, and you'll spend lots and lots of time planning lessons, and collective worship deserves some quality time for planning as well. Now, sometimes the best ideas, they do come at the last minute, they do come spontaneously, they do come as you're cleaning your teeth or walking the dog. But planning is important. And even if that idea comes at the last moment, if you've got that structure in your head, how am I going to begin? What's the bit in the middle? What's the message that I want to deliver? And how am I going to conclude? And you've got your ingredients ready, then it will work every time. Plan carefully. You don't have to write it all down, but that might be the best way for you. Hopefully you've seen some of the off-the-shelf videos that I've been creating during lockdown. And they're not perfect because nothing ever is. But hopefully you've seen in some of those videos the things that I've been mentioning. Everything has something that captures attention. All the videos have a connection to what's real and relevant to the children at the moment. I'm not talking to them about, oh, when you go to the cinema at the weekend, because they can't. So it's, if you're feeling a bit frightened, or thank you to the key workers, or how many of you have fallen out with your brothers and sisters while you've been stuck in your own home? So making it real, making it relevant, making it interesting, and they're all rooted in the Bible. They've all got a message. I've been trying to ask the children questions and giving them little challenges to do, and hopefully making it relevant. So watching them has perhaps given you a few ideas, and maybe you've got some bits and pieces on your shelf and you need to make a collection of things, a collection of books that you can use, different Bibles, different stories, different objects that are useful. And so I promised that I was going to wave around a few of my resources, and that's what I'm going to do now. So firstly, my absolute favourite, the Lion Storyteller Bible. I would absolutely guarantee that there is one of these in your school, and it's a fantastic Bible for doing that, for telling the stories. And Bob Hartman is a brilliant author, and he's got a new book out called The Rhyming Bible now, which is a great one, and as it suggests, all the stories are rhyming, so that's good fun as well. And he's got lots and lots of other books, and it's pretty much guaranteed if Bob Hartman wrote it, then it's fantastic. Also, individual stories. There's some beautiful storybooks around, and you can use these with children of all ages. Don't just assume that they're for the little ones. But it's really, really important that they know that these stories come from this book. Sometimes they could just think that they're all individual, but they come from the Bible. So it's important that you do show them this and you do use this with them. And this is a message Bible and an NIV. And so using different versions, different translations, is also another way of capturing attention, especially if it's a story they've heard many, many times before. But do use Bibles appropriate for the age of the children, and there's lots out there, and this one's rather good fun with squidgy toys as the illustrations. Have other books up your sleeve. A Planet Full of Plastic, a great book about what's happening to our world, climate change and single-use plastic, and what we need to do about it, and of course connecting that to our responsibilities as stewardship of creation, that God created the world for us and we need to look after it. We also need to introduce our children to inspirational people. I think that's reflecting a bit. Oh, there we go. Nelson Mandela. He's on my shelf because he's one of my favourites. And then also this story here about Malala. So different people around the world, different cultures. And that's really important to give children that sense of Christianity being this big, worldwide, global faith. And I've got a few, because I've been lucky to travel, different resources to illustrate that could be good on your focal table. You might have friends, family that do a lot of travelling. Ask them to collect bits and pieces for you. The vicar, members of the congregation, they often have things like this on their shelf, things from their travels as well. So that's a good way of making a connection between church and school. Also picked up this book here, Outdoor Worship, and engageworship.org. They do some really good resources for outdoor worship, And there's also some books called Wild Worship, Wild Advent and Wild Lent. We also have on our Board of Education website some resources that make the most of worshipping outdoors and encouraging children to look at the world around them. There's a slide come up now, hopefully, that highlights the resource area of our website. There's loads and loads of things on the Board of Education website, and there's a really exciting project at the moment called podcasts, Bible podlets, and I think the children in school would really enjoy listening to them. Also on the internet you can find loads of things on YouTube. So I've just highlighted there the Saddleback Kids animated Bible stories. There's loads of them and children of all ages seem to really like them. There's also a website, assemblies.org, and they have a wide range of assemblies on current topics, which is really useful. So for example, they would have had some ready for VE Day, and they would have had some ready for the Olympics, and that's quite handy. Also on YouTube there's absolutely loads of children's worship songs. Hillsong Kids Worship is on that slide there. You need to just play around and see what you can find and see which ones you enjoy, and also don't just assume that the children want to sing kids worship songs. You can include the ones that would be used by a whole congregation or adults. You could also use praise and worship for creating the atmosphere. There's some beautiful worship piano music that you can find on YouTube, and beautiful images that we can use on PowerPoints to take us to places in the world that we would perhaps never visit or would give us aspirations to visit. So if you're talking about being on the top of a mountain, well, show them a picture of the top of the mountain. And if you're talking about a storm on a lake, you'll know what story that is. Then show them a lake and show them pictures of a storm and sound effects, and have fun, be creative. There's also a website called Prayer Spaces for Schools, and they've created some for you to create use at home as well at the moment. Lots of people have sprung into action, and they're full of really good ideas for the prayer spaces in your hall and in your classroom. And a few more ideas from me, from my shelf, different crosses. So this one's rather beautiful. It's got the words of 1 Corinthians 13 written in it, and candles as well. I mentioned candles earlier on. Lighting a candle to indicate that this is worship time, and to do that in your classroom as well as in the hall. And then this dish, which I'm using as part of the off-the-shelf for VE Day, is full of different hearts made of different materials. And having these kind of things, pebbles, shells, buttons, ribbons, something physical, tactile, to touch, to hold while children are praying. Some of these stones have got words on them. That one's got the word hope on it. That one's got the word love on it. I've got some of these that are made of wood as well, which is always really nice. There's a wooden heart. Things to hold, things to touch. Things that they have like Lego, that's a really good one. Little figures that you use in small world play. Different fabrics. If you're talking about tough times, then let's touch some sandpaper and then have some cotton wool for good times and soft and gentle. So using multi-sensory things is really important as well. So I hope that's given you a few ideas. I hope that that has filled that gap, like I said, of a little bit of knowledge, but also boosted your confidence that you do know what you're doing and it can be great fun. And if you're not on the rota for leading worship, because the senior leadership do it all the time, volunteer to have a go, because it is an experience and it's good to have a few of those under your belt before you perhaps move school and suddenly find yourself on the rota and you've never done one before. Trust the children, don't over rehearse them, let them help you and build their confidence as well, and have fun leading worship. So take care, everybody. You know where I am if you need me, and I hope that I will see you in the autumn time once I can get out and about and around schools again, and that keep well and that you all do manage to get some rest over the summertime to recharge your batteries. It's been great to meet you this year, and take care everyone. God bless. Bye.